On a late night in Orlando, Florida, flashing blue lights cut through the darkness behind a black sedan. It was supposed to be a routine traffic stop. 2 minor violations, a speeding ticket, maybe a warning. But within minutes, what began as a simple encounter transformed into something far more sinister. A young man's constitutional rights would be tested. His silence would be criminalized. His car would be torn apart. And the very freedoms guaranteed by the Constitution would be twisted into weapons against him. This is the story of Kareem Spalding, a 24-year-old graphic designer whose ordinary drive home became a chilling example of how the justice system can fail those it's sworn to protect. No drugs were found, no weapons, no crime. Yet he would leave that stop in handcuffs, humiliated, violated, and forever changed. This is a story about power, about the thin blue line between protection and persecution, and about what happens when a phrase, officer safety, becomes a shield for constitutional violations. Welcome to the case that asks a haunting question. If exercise of your rights makes you a suspect, are you truly free? Kareem Spalding wasn't a criminal. He was a 24-year-old graphic designer living in Orlando, trying to build a career and navigate life like millions of other young Americans. Born in 1994, Kareem had grown up understanding the importance of knowing your rights. Like many young black men in America, he'd been taught early about interactions with police. Stay calm, be respectful, but know what you're entitled to under the law. He had a clean driving record, no criminal history, no outstanding warrants. His car, a black sedan, was registered to his parents. Everything was legitimate. Everything was legal. On this particular night, Kareem was simply driving home. The streets of Orlando were quiet. Traffic was light. He had no reason to expect that his life was about to be turned upside down. But as he crossed the intersection at John Young Parkway and Winter Garden Road, something caught the attention of 2 Orlando police officers patrolling the area. They claimed he switched lanes in the middle of an intersection. They clocked him going 51 miles per hour in a 35-mile-per-hour zone. 2 traffic violations, minor infractions that typically result in a ticket. Maybe a warning the officer is feeling generous. But for these officers, the traffic stop wasn't the goal. It was an excuse. The blue lights flashed. Kareem pulled over, his heart rate likely already elevated. Even for someone with nothing to hide, a police stop triggers anxiety. It's human nature. But what Kareem didn't know was that this wasn't going to be a routine stop. The officers approaching his vehicle had a different mission entirely. One officer approached the driver's side window. His tone was firm, commanding. Roll your window down. All the way down. Roll all your windows down. The commands came fast, overlapping, creating immediate pressure. Kareem complied. He began lowering his windows. You got your driver's license, registration, insurance for me? Before Kareem could respond, the officer's tone shifted. Hey, before you go around, do you have any guns in the car? Turn the car off. Turn the car off. Turn the car off. The repetition was deliberate, aggressive, designed to create urgency and compliance. Undo your seatbelt. Why are you reaching around so crazy like that? Within seconds, the traffic stop had transformed into something else entirely. Kareem had barely had time to process what was happening before the accusations began flying. The officers weren't interested in his license. They weren't concerned about the lane change or the speeding. They were looking for narcotics. And they had already decided Kareem was acting suspicious. Step out of the car for me. It's a command every American driver dreads. Because once you're out of the vehicle, everything changes. I asked you to do one thing. You start getting all fidgety, man. Step out of the car for me. Kareem tried to assert his rights. Yo, guys, listen. I don't consent to this. But his words fell on deaf ears. Step out, man. You're not in trouble right now. You're just acting funny. That's all. The officer's reasoning was circular, absurd even. You're starting to reach for things. You're looking at me. You're nervous. I asked you to do one thing. You start getting all fidgety, man. Starting to roll your window back up when I asked you to roll it down. Every movement Kareem made was being interpreted as suspicious. Reaching for his license? Suspicious. Looking at the officer? Suspicious. Appearing nervous when surrounded by armed police? Suspicious. The logic was maddening. How could anyone not be nervous in that situation? But the officers had their narrative, and they were sticking to it. Step out of the car, sir. Step out of the car for me. The command was repeated over and over, each iteration more insistent than the last. Kareem recorded the encounter on his phone. Guys, I'm recording. That's fine. We're recording it too. Finally, Kareem stepped out of the vehicle. Within seconds, hands were on him. Turn around. Do you have anything on you? Do you have anything? Stop reaching. Even as Kareem stood still, complying with orders, the officers maintained their aggressive posture. No consent to searches, man. What is this? We're just patting you down. Kareem's voice carried frustration, confusion, and a growing sense of violation. You're not in trouble right now. Okay, relax. But everything about the situation suggested otherwise. The Fifth Amendment to the United States Constitution guarantees the right against self-incrimination. You cannot be forced to answer questions that might incriminate you. You have the right to remain silent. It's one of the most fundamental protections in American law, drilled into our cultural consciousness by countless police procedurals and legal dramas. But on this night in Orlando, that right will be turned against Kareem Spalding. Is there anything illegal in the car, sir? Guys, I don't consent to search. Okay, listen. I'm not asking to search a car right now. I'm asking you if there's anything illegal in the vehicle. The distinction was meaningless. The officer was fishing for information, and Kareem knew it. I don't answer questions. It was a textbook assertion of constitutional rights. But the officers didn't see it that way. Where's your license box? Okay, right now you're not handcuffed. If you don't have a license, it's okay. We'll work through it. But you got to work with me so I can work with you. The implication was clear. Cooperation meant giving up your rights. Silence meant consequences. Do you have a license in the car or on you? Kareem didn't respond, and that silence sealed his fate. All right now, you're going to be detained. Okay, we're going to just because you have to have a license, and because we have stopped you driving the vehicle, you have to provide that for us. And since you're not, that's why you're being handcuffed. The metal cuffs clicked around Kareem's wrists. He was now officially detained, not for speeding, not for the improper lane change, but for exercising his constitutional right to remain silent. Listen, you're not in any kind of trouble right now. We're trying to find out who you are. You're just shaking. You're acting funny. The contradictions piled up. He wasn't in trouble, but he was in handcuffs. He was just nervous, but that nervousness was grounds for detention. I want names and badge numbers. We're going to get that for you, bud. But they wouldn't. Not immediately. Not without resistance. Listen, if you want to take this the hard way, we'll take it the hard way, and we'll start going through some things. The threat was thinly veiled. Comply, or things get worse. The United States Supreme Court established clear boundaries in Rodriguez versus United States in 2015. The ruling was unambiguous. Officers cannot prolong a traffic stop to conduct a dog sniff without independent, reasonable suspicion of criminal activity. A traffic stop must be limited in scope and duration to the original violation. Once the purpose of the stop is complete, you must be free to go. But in Kareem's case, none of that mattered. The officers had already made up their minds. All right, we're looking for narcotics. We're looking for firearms. All right, I'm not sitting here looking to stroke you for a speeding ticket and illegal lane change. There it was, the admission. So, you pulled me over because you were looking for narcotics? I pulled you over for your 2 traffic infractions. Okay, that's it. The officer tried to walk it back, but the truth had already slipped out. This wasn't about the lane change. It wasn't about speeding. It was a fishing expedition, a pretextual stop designed to search for drugs. The traffic violations were just the excuse to get Kareem out of his car and conduct a search. But when you start acting weird now, I'm sitting there going, well, what's he have on them? 'Cause that's consistent with me. Consistent with what? Being nervous during a police stop? The reasoning was circular and unconstitutional. But the officers pressed on. What's your first name? Kareem had finally had enough. You want to know if my name is correct? That's all. That's it, man. Kareem. Spell that for me, please. Krem. Okay, and what's your last name? Spalding. The interrogation continued. Date of birth, middle name, age, address. Every question is designed to buy time, because the real plan was already in motion. 8K9 unit was on its way. Drug-sniffing dogs are considered probable cause machines in the American justice system. If a certified police dog alerts a vehicle, officers can search it without a warrant. The dog's behavior alone is enough to override Fourth Amendment protections. But here's what most people don't know. Drug dogs are wrong. A lot. Studies have shown false positive rates as high as 40% or more in some cases. Dogs respond to handler cues, environmental factors, and residual scents that may have been present weeks or months earlier. They're not infallible detectors. They're animals influenced by training, stress, and their handlers' expectations. But in practice, the alert is all that matters. And the officers knew that. Tango 103. Do we have AK-9 dog available? While they waited, the officers stalled. They asked more questions. They searched for Kareem's wallet. They prolonged every interaction. If there's anything illegal in the car and you want to be honest about it, we can be honest about it. If not, it's not a big deal. You don't have to answer questions. I'm not forcing you to answer questions. But that was a lie. Everything about the stop was designed to force answers, to create pressure, to make silence itself seem like an admission of guilt. But in the meantime, till he gets here now, I have to start writing tickets. More delay tactics. Finally, the K-9 unit arrived. The dog was walking around Kareem's vehicle. The handler gave commands. The dog circled, sniffed, and then sat. An alert. That was all they needed. The reason we had to search your vehicle is there's a positive hit for narcotics on your car. I'm not saying there's anything in there now, but at some point in time there was. The qualifier was important. Even the officer acknowledged they might find nothing, but the search would happen anyway. Bags were emptied. The trunk was opened. Seats were moved. Every inch of the vehicle was examined. And in the end, they found exactly what Kareem said they would find. Nothing. No drugs. No firearms. No contraband of any kind. Just a young man's belongings scattered across the pavement in the rain. Kareem had been right all along. He had nothing to hide. No illegal substances. No weapons. Nothing that justified the search. But being right didn't undo what had happened. It didn't erase the humiliation of being handcuffed on the side of the road. It didn't restore the dignity stripped away when officers rifled through his personal belongings. It didn't remove the anger, the frustration, the sense of powerlessness that comes from watching your constitutional rights evaporate in real time. You are being issued a uniform traffic citation. All right. After everything, after the detention, the handcuffs, the search, the dog, the violation of his rights, Kareem received exactly what he would have gotten at the beginning, a ticket. Uniform traffic citation is going to be for improper change of course. You change lanes in the middle of an intersection. You cannot do so within 100 feet before or after the intersection. I am going to cut you a break and give you a warning for your speed. You're doing 51 miles per hour in a 35 mile per hour zone. A break, a warning, as if the officers had done Kareem a favor, as if they hadn't just violated his Fourth Amendment, right against unreasonable search and seizure, as if they hadn't penalized him for exercising his Fifth Amendment right to remain silent, as if the entire encounter hadn't been a textbook example of pretextual policing. Kareem took his ticket and left. But this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Kareem Spalding wasn't going to let this go. He had been violated. His rights had been trampled. And he had the body camera footage to prove it. He consulted with attorneys who specialized in civil rights cases. Together, they built a case against the Orlando Police Department. The lawsuit would seek $15 million in damages. It alleged violations of the Fourth Amendment, unlawful seizure and search without probable cause. It alleged violations of the Fifth Amendment, penalizing a citizen for exercising the right to remain silent. The suit sought compensatory damages for emotional distress, reputational harm, and the loss of liberty Kareem experienced during his detention. It also sought punitive damages, designed not just to compensate Kareem, but to punish the officers in the department for their actions. The message was clear: this kind of policing is unacceptable, and there must be consequences. But the lawsuit also raised bigger questions. Questions about how traffic codes are weaponized as dragnet tools. Questions about how officer safety has become a catch-all justification for constitutional violations. Questions about how equal protection under the law is nearly impossible to enforce when discriminatory intent is so difficult to prove. The body camera footage told the story. The officers had been looking for drugs from the start. The traffic violations were just the excuse. Kareem's nervousness, his assertion of rights, his silence, all of it had been twisted into probable cause. And a dog's alert, potentially false, had given them the legal cover they needed to search his car from top to bottom. This wasn't an isolated incident. Across the United States, pretextual stops follow the same playbook. A minor violation, inflated suspicion, a prolonged stop, a dog sniffed, a fruitless search. And at the end of it all, a citizen left feeling violated, powerless, and angry. Kareem's case is part of a much larger pattern. Pretextual stops have been a controversial policing tactic for decades. The idea is simple: use minor traffic violations as a pretext to investigate more serious crimes. Broken taillight? That's your probable cause to stop the vehicle. Failure to signal? That's your reason to ask questions. Improper lane change? That's your excuse to bring in the drug dog. On paper, it sounds like proactive policing. In practice, it's a civil rights minefield. The Supreme Court has struggled with this issue repeatedly. In Wren v. United States in 1996, the court ruled that officers could use any traffic violation as a pretext for a stop, as long as a violation actually occurred. The court essentially said, we don't care about the officer's real motivation. If the traffic violation is legitimate, the stop is legal. But that decision opened the floodgates. It gave officers nearly unlimited discretion to stop vehicles, knowing that virtually every driver commits some minor infraction during a typical drive. Following too closely, slightly exceeding the speed limit, touching the lane marker. Any of these could be grounds for a stop. And once the stop is initiated, the pressure begins. Questions about where you're going, where you've been, whether you have anything illegal, requests to search the vehicle, calls for backup, delays while waiting for drug dogs. All of it legal, according to the Supreme Court, as long as the initial traffic violation was real. But Rodriguez v. United States in 2015 tried to put limits on this practice. The court ruled that once the purpose of the traffic stop is complete, any additional delay to conduct a dog sniff violates the Fourth Amendment unless there's independent, reasonable suspicion. In theory, this should have protected Kareem. The officers admitted they were looking for drugs, not issuing traffic citations. They prolonged the stop specifically to wait for the K-9 unit. They had no independent, reasonable suspicion beyond Kareem's nervousness and his exercise of constitutional rights. Under Rodriguez, the search should have been illegal. But here's the problem. Proving a Rodriguez violation requires showing that the stop was unreasonably prolonged. Officers can easily create justification for delay. They can claim they're still gathering information, still writing tickets, still assessing officer safety. And nervousness? That's the golden ticket. Courts have repeatedly held that nervous behavior can contribute to reasonable suspicion. But who isn't nervous during a traffic stop? Especially if you're a young black man who knows the statistics, who knows that black drivers are pulled over at higher rates than white drivers, who knows that black motorists are more likely to be searched, even though they're less likely to be carrying contraband, who knows that asserting your rights can be perceived as suspicious, hostile, or threatening. The system puts drivers in an impossible position. Assert your rights and you look guilty. Stay silent and you look like you're hiding something. Get nervous, and that's the probable cause. It's a game you can't win. One of the biggest challenges in cases like Kareem's is proving discriminatory intent. The Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment prohibits discrimination based on race. But courts require more than just evidence of disparate impact. You have to prove that the officers intended to discriminate, and that's almost impossible. An officer can always claim they stopped you for the traffic violation, not your race. They can claim your nervousness raises red flags, not your skin color. They can claim officer safety concerns, not racial profiling. Even if the statistics show a clear pattern of disproportionate stops, courts give officers the benefit of the doubt. After all, the officers are just doing their jobs, right? Except that's not always true. Body camera footage and audio recordings have revealed troubling patterns. Officers joking about sovereign citizens. Officers discussed how the driver has all these weird conversations and tape and lenses and all that. Officers are strategizing about whether to read Miranda rights. Not because it's required, but because they think it might get the suspect to talk. These moments reveal the truth. The officers see Kareem as a suspect, not a citizen. They see his assertion of rights as an obstacle to overcome, not a constitutional protection to respect. And they see the traffic stop as a tool, not a legitimate enforcement action. This is a reality of pretextual policing. It gives officers nearly unlimited power to stop, detain, and search citizens based on the flimsiest of justifications. And it disproportionately affects communities of color. Studies consistently show that Black and Hispanic drivers are stopped, searched, and arrested at higher rates than white drivers, even when controlling for factors like location and driving behavior. The traffic code becomes a weapon, and the Constitution becomes an afterthought, beyond the legal arguments and constitutional theory. There's a human cost to encounters like this. Kareem Spalding left that traffic stop changed. He had done nothing wrong, committed no crime, broken no law beyond a minor traffic infraction. But he was treated like a criminal, handcuffed, searched, humiliated in public, his belongings scattered in the rain while officers tore his car apart looking for drugs that didn't exist. That kind of experience leaves scars. It erodes trust in law enforcement. It creates a sense of powerlessness and anger that doesn't go away easily. For Kareem, every interaction with police from that point forward will be colored by this experience. Every time he sees blue lights in his rearview mirror, his heart rate will spike. Every time he's asked to step out of a vehicle, he'll remember the feeling of cold metal cuffs on his wrists. Every time he asserts his rights, he'll wonder if it will be held against him. This is a reality for millions of Americans who have been subjected to pretextual stops. The damage isn't just legal. It's psychological, emotional, social. It reinforces a message that some people are more suspicious than others, that some communities are more deserving of scrutiny than others, that your rights are only as strong as an officer's willingness to respect them. And when officers face no consequences for violating those rights, the message becomes even clearer. You are not protected by the Constitution. You are subject to it. So what can be done? How do we fix a system that allows constitutional rights to be violated in the name of officer safety? Some advocates call for ending pretextual stops altogether. They argue that minor traffic violations should result in citations, nothing more. No prolonged interrogations, no searches, no drug dogs. Others call for stricter enforcement of Rodriguez versus United States. They want courts to crack down on stops that are unreasonably prolonged without independent, reasonable suspicion. Some push for better training on constitutional rights and implicit bias. The idea is that if officers understand the law and recognize their own biases, they'll be less likely to violate citizens' rights. But critics argue that training isn't enough, that the problem isn't ignorance, it's incentive. Officers are rewarded for drug arrests, for weapon seizures, for appearing tough on crime. Departments track these metrics. Promotions and assignments can depend on them. So officers have an incentive to push the boundaries, to interpret nervousness as suspicion, to prolong stops just long enough for the drug dog to arrive, to search even when the legal justification is questionable, because the worst-case scenario is that a court throws out the evidence. But if they find something, it's a win for their record. The citizens whose rights are violated, they're just collateral damage. That's why cases like Kareem's matter. Civil rights lawsuits create financial consequences for departments that tolerate constitutional violations. If the Orlando Police Department has to pay out $15 million, that sends a message, not just to the officers involved, but to the entire department. Violating rights has consequences, and those consequences are expensive. Whether that's enough to change behavior remains to be seen, but it's a start. Kareem's case echoes a Supreme Court decision from 1886. Yick versus Hopkins involved a San Francisco ordinance that required laundry businesses to obtain permits to operate in wooden buildings. On its face, the law seemed neutral, but in practice, it was enforced almost exclusively against Chinese immigrants. White-owned laundries in wooden buildings were granted permits. Chinese-owned laundries were denied. The Supreme Court ruled that laws applied with an evil eye and an unequal hand violate the Equal Protection Clause. It didn't matter that the law itself was neutral. What mattered was how it was enforced. That principle applies directly to pretextual stops. Traffic codes are facially neutral. Everyone has to follow the same rules. But when those codes are enforced disproportionately against Black and Hispanic drivers, when they're used as excuses to search for drugs, when they're weaponized as dragnet tools, they become unconstitutional. They're applied with an evil eye and an unequal hand. The challenge is proving it, because unlike Yick, where the discrimination was documented and obvious, modern pretextual stops hide behind phrases like officer safety and reasonable suspicion. Every stop has a justification. Every search has a legal excuse. But the pattern is clear: anyone willing to look. And cases like Kareem shine a light on that pattern. They force courts to confront the gap between constitutional theory and real-world practice. They ask uncomfortable questions about how we balance public safety with civil liberties. And they remind us that rights aren't self-enforcing. They require vigilance, accountability, consequences. Without those things, the Constitution is just words on paper. For Kareem Spalding, that night in Orlando was supposed to be ordinary. A drive home after a long day, maybe some traffic, nothing memorable. Instead, it became a defining moment, a crash course in how quickly freedom can evaporate, how easily rights can be dismissed, how powerless you can feel when the people sworn to protect you treat you like a criminal. He followed the law. He knew his rights. He stayed calm, and it didn't matter, because the system isn't designed to protect people like him. It's designed to give officers maximum discretion and minimum accountability. It's designed to prioritize control over freedom. It's designed to treat nervousness as guilt and silence as evidence. Kareem's lawsuit is more than just a demand for compensation. It's a demand for recognition. Recognition that what happened to him was wrong. Recognition that his rights matter. Recognition that change is necessary. Whether the courts will provide that recognition remains to be seen. But one thing is certain: Kareem's story isn't unique. It's happening every day in cities and towns across America. Minor traffic stops that become invasive searches. Constitutional rights that are ignored or violated. Citizens who leave encounters with police feeling traumatized, angry, and powerless. Until the system changes, these stories will continue. Until officers face real consequences for violating rights, the incentives will remain the same. Until courts close the loopholes that allow pretextual stops to flourish, citizens will remain vulnerable. And until we as a society demand better, nothing will change. Kareem Spalding's traffic stop lasted less than an hour, but its impact will last a lifetime. He was stopped for speeding and an improper lane change. He was treated like a drug dealer. He asserted his constitutional rights. He was handcuffed and searched. He had nothing illegal in his car. He was humiliated anyway. This is what happens when the Constitution is treated as optional. When officer safety becomes a justification for any violation. When silence is criminalized and nervousness is the probable cause. Kareem is fighting back. His $15 million lawsuit demands accountability. But the bigger fight is about more than money. It's about principle. It's about the idea that in America, you're innocent until proven guilty. That you have the right to remain silent without punishment. That minor traffic violations shouldn't lead to invasive searches. That your rights matter, regardless of your race or the color of your skin. Flashing blue lights should signal lawful enforcement, not a hunt for non-existent crimes. Until that changes, every driver is at risk. Every traffic stop is a potential constitutional violation, and every assertion of rights is a gamble. Kareem Spalding's story is a warning and a call to action, because if it can happen to him, it can happen to anyone. The question is, what are we going to do about it? Stories like Kareem's don't get told enough, and when they do, they're often buried under legal jargon and forgotten. But these stories matter. They expose the cracks in our justice system. They shine light on the constitutional violations happening every single day, and they remind us that our rights are only as strong as our willingness to defend them. If the story opened your eyes, if it made you think, if it made you angry or uncomfortable or motivated to demand change, then we need your help spreading it. Hit that like button right now. It tells YouTube that this story matters and helps push it to more people who need to see it. Drop a comment below. Tell us what you think. Have you or someone you know experienced something similar? Do you think Kareem's lawsuit will bring real change? We read every single comment, and your voice adds to this conversation. Share this video. Send it to your friends, your family, your social media. Post it in your community groups. Because the more people who know what's happening, the harder it becomes to ignore. And if you haven't already, subscribe to True Crime Vault and hit that notification bell. We're committed to bringing you the stories that challenge the system, expose injustice, and demand accountability. Stories about real people, real violations, and real consequences. This is more than true crime. This is a true crime, and we're just getting started. Next week, we'll dive into another case that will shock you. Another story of power, corruption, and the fight for justice. You won't want to miss it, so subscribe now. Stay informed, stay engaged, because awareness is the first step toward change. And change starts with you. Thank you for watching True Crime Vault. Until next time, stay safe, know your rights, and never stop questioning.